the small-town murder that shocked America, the vanishing of Lil, Mississippi. Before we dive into this chilling small-town mystery, make sure you subscribe, smash that like button, and drop a comment below, because the truth hiding in this case is darker than you can imagine. The North Platte River in Wyoming moved quietly on a cold spring morning in 1988. The water was dark, deceptively calm, carrying secrets no one yet knew. A fisherman on the banks caught sight of something unusual, half hidden in the shallows. What he found would mark the beginning of one of the most haunting murder cases in American history. The body of a young woman, 18-year-old Lisa Marie Kimmell, floated near the rocks, her life stolen in a way no one could yet understand. It wasn't just the discovery of the body that shook the state of Wyoming, but the fact that Lisa had already been missing for days. Her car, a black Honda CRX with the license plate, Lil Miss, was nowhere to be found. That personalized plate, a playful nickname, would soon become the chilling title of the case that would haunt investigators and families for years. The Lil Miss murder. Just a week earlier, Lisa had been driving from Colorado to Montana to visit her boyfriend. She was a bright, ambitious young woman, beloved by her family, her smile unforgettable. She never made it to her destination. Somewhere along the long stretch of Wyoming highway, she had vanished. When Lisa's body surfaced, police raced to reconstruct her last moments. Witnesses remembered seeing her car, that unmistakable plate catching eyes. Someone thought they'd seen her pulled over on the side of the highway. Others recalled a young woman matching her description in Casper, filling up gas. But none of these leads gave answers, only more questions. For Lisa's family, the nightmare was unbearable. She had been responsible, cautious, the kind of daughter who called if she was running late. Her disappearance made no sense. And now, her death seemed beyond comprehension. Investigators knew they had a difficult case ahead. The highways of Wyoming stretched wide and empty, giving her killer endless places to hide. No witnesses, no immediate suspects, no sign of her missing car. But there were clues, subtle ones, that kept detectives awake at night. The condition of her body hinted at something deeply sinister. She had been murdered, her life cut short in violence. Yet there were no signs pointing directly to who had done it. Whoever the killer was, he had managed to leave little behind. The FBI joined the hunt. They scoured highways, rivers, and truck stops, following rumors and whispers. The black Honda with its personalized plate became infamous, a symbol of the unsolved mystery. Drivers across Wyoming were told to keep their eyes open. Still, the car remained missing, as if it had disappeared into thin air. The case became an obsession for detectives in Casper. Each day without answers made the town more restless. Parents told their daughters not to travel alone. Families locked their doors tighter at night. In a place where everyone knew each other's name, fear settled like a heavy fog. The trail grew colder with every passing week. Lisa's family held her funeral, their grief made worse by the silence. The small-town girl with big dreams had been buried, but her killer walked free. Then came the moment that stopped investigators in their tracks. Months into the search, police received a tip. A vehicle had been spotted, abandoned and rusting on private land, hidden away from the highway. The description sent a chill through the officers' veins. That it was a black Honda. The license plate read, Lil Miss. The missing car of Lisa Marie Kimmell had been found. And inside that vehicle, detectives would discover something that shattered every assumption they had made about the case. The hidden evidence. The black Honda CRX sat on the private property like a tomb. Rust gathered on the edges, weeds crept up around the tires, and a layer of dust coated the once shiny paint. But the personalized plate still stood out, Lil Miss. For detectives, this wasn't just a car. It was a crime scene frozen in time. As they carefully opened the doors, the smell of damp fabric and decay filled the air. The interior revealed haunting clues. Lisa's belongings, her purse, some clothing, even a few personal items, remained inside. But what caught investigators' attention were the signs of a struggle. The seats bore stains. Fibers and hairs clung to the upholstery. And most chilling of all, faint traces of blood were found. This was no random disappearance. It was abduction, violence, and murder. Detectives began piecing together Lisa's final journey. She had been alive when she was forced off the highway. She had been inside this car, terrified, before her killer disposed of her body in the North Platte River. Whoever he was, he had controlled the vehicle, controlled her, and then tried to erase the evidence. The discovery of the Honda electrified the investigation. Police now had something tangible. Crime labs worked tirelessly, lifting fingerprints, collecting fibers, and storing samples for testing. But in 1988, forensic science was limited. The evidence could be preserved, but not fully decoded. That limitation frustrated investigators. They had Lisa's body. They had her car. But no suspect. No clear motive. And no way to prove who had been behind the wheel that night. The community of Casper, Wyoming, grew more restless. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some believed Lisa had been targeted by someone she knew. Others feared a drifter, a predator who stalked highways looking for young women traveling alone. Parents whispered warnings to their daughters, the Cass. Casting a shadow over every quiet street and every long drive across Wyoming's open roads. The FBI issued appeals to the public, desperate for any lead. Truck drivers were questioned, locals interviewed, and known offenders brought in. Each time, detectives thought they were close. Each time, the trail evaporated. Lisa's family endured the torment of not knowing. Her mother clutched photographs of Lisa in cheerleader uniforms, smiling, full of life, and demanded answers from authorities. Her father kept pressing investigators to chase every lead, refusing to let his daughter's memory fade into another cold case. But the case was slipping into silence. Years passed. The Honda was locked away, the evidence preserved. But the killer remained a ghost. No one could explain how a young woman could vanish on a stretch of highway and turn up murdered with not a single suspect identified. The case became one of Wyoming's darkest mysteries, a riddle that mocked law enforcement. By the mid-1990s, the Lil Miss murder was considered cold. Detectives moved on to other crimes, though the file never truly closed. But Lisa's story never disappeared. It became a cautionary tale, a legend whispered in Casper, the cheerleader with the Lil Miss plate who was stolen on the road, and then, in 2002, technology that had seemed impossible in 1988 roared to life. DNA profiling had advanced, and preserved samples from Lisa's car and body were finally tested. For the first time, investigators had a name to match the ghost they had chased for more than a decade. The DNA pointed to a man with a violent past. A drifter, a loner, a man who had escaped suspicion all those years ago. His name was Dale Wayne Eaton. The man behind the murder. For nearly 14 years, Lisa Marie Kimmell's murder had been one of Wyoming's darkest mysteries. Her family had waited, her town had whispered, and her case had grown cold. But in 2002, everything changed. When the preserved DNA evidence from Lisa's car and body was tested with modern technology, the results shocked investigators. The name that surfaced was Dale Wayne Eaton. Eaton was no stranger to trouble. He had a history of violence, arrests, and a reputation as a loner who lived on the fringes of society. At the time of Lisa's abduction in 1988, he had lived in Wyoming, not far from the highways she traveled. And now, the DNA proved what no one had been able to say before. He had been in Lisa's car. Detectives reopened every angle of the case. They retraced Eaton's movements, questioned people who had known him, and pieced together the story. It was chilling. Eaton had spotted Lisa as she drove through Wyoming. He forced her off the road, abducted her, and held her captive. For days, she had been trapped, powerless in his control, before he murdered her and dumped her body in the North Platte River. When Eaton was finally brought to trial, the courtroom was heavy with grief and anticipation. Lisa's family sat in the front row, her mother clutching a photograph of her daughter in her cheerleader uniform, her father staring coldly at the man who had stolen their child. Eaton sat expressionless, his eyes downcast as prosecutors laid out the horror of what he had done. The evidence was overwhelming. The DNA matched. The fibers connected. And witnesses painted a picture of a man who fit the profile of Lisa's killer in every possible way. Jurors listened as prosecutors described how Lisa's bright future had been cut short by a man who had lurked in the shadows for far too long. In 2004, Dale Wayne Eaton was convicted of the kidnapping, rape, and murder of Lisa Marie Kimmell. The jury sentenced him to death, calling the crime one of the most brutal in Wyoming's history. For Lisa's family, it was justice, delayed but undeniable. They finally had a name, a face, and a conviction, but justice in America is never simple. Years of appeals followed. Eaton's execution was delayed again and again, his lawyers arguing over his mental health, his past, and whether he deserved to die. In 2014, his death sentence was overturned, replaced with life in prison. To Lisa's family, it felt like a cruel twist. They had waited decades for justice, only to see the punishment softened. Still, the conviction remained. The man who had haunted them for years was behind bars, where he could never hurt another young woman. The community of Casper could finally breathe, though the wound of Lisa's loss would never heal. Even today, the Lil Miss murder remains a haunting reminder of how fragile safety can be. Lisa was a young woman with dreams, driving on an ordinary highway, never knowing that a predator was watching. Her case shows how technology, patience, and determination can bring answers, even decades later, and yet, her story lingers in the shadows. Lisa's car, with its personalized plate, Lil Miss, became a symbol burned into the memory of Wyoming. For her family, it is both a reminder of who she was and of the nightmare that stole her. Dale Wayne Eaton may have been caught, but the scars remain. A family forever broken. A town forever changed. And a nation reminded that even the most ordinary journey can end in tragedy. That if you thought this story was chilling, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe, before the shadows find you first.